Hello, everyone. Ambassador Terry, along with my co-host and dear colleague and friend, Maria Papacosta, and we're going to be talking about a little bit of audience profiling. Maria, this is going to be fun.
It is, and it's such a great pleasure and honor to be in your great company. Thank you, Ambassador Terry.
I love you. Thank you for the kind comment. But I feel the same. You're a terrific person, huge speaker, and just having the opportunity to catch up a little bit before the show started was terrific as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to make sure that you know that special guest, yeah. And we're talking about audience profiling. What does that mean? I just happened to write a book about profiling for profit, what crossed arms don't tell you. And it's a handy little book, and it has some great stuff in it. It's called an airplane book for those of you who are not familiar with the airplane book. An airplane book is a book that you can read cover to cover in the time it would take to fly in an aircraft. Hour and a half, 2 hours. In America, that's Washington, D.C. down to Atlanta or vice versa, that kind of thing. And then when you get to the other end, that's what I tell my prospective companies. You call back to the office and you say, order 100 of these. We're going to have this guy come and talk. And I like it. I don't mind so much. So what is profiling? Yeah, we have profiling for profit, but what is audience profiling? For me, I not only get hired for events, but I take good care of the host while I'm there. I arrive a day early and I stay active the hours of the event each day. Day early, you get to talk to sponsors and vendors and those kinds of things that are there setting up their booths and going through their demos and those kinds of things. You get a lot of insight on what's important to them and relevant to them and the show that you're at, or conference or summit, whatever it is. But there's another group that are equally important, and that is the first day of the conference. You want to be there mingling and talking to people as soon as they arrive. You want to be there before they are, talking to the people that are setting up the registration booths and those kinds of things. What's relevant with them? Why are they there? Are they volunteers? Depends on the type of summit you've got that could be of interest to world peace, or a big one for me is climate, both world peace and climate actually. And you start to profile and get an idea of what the audience is thinking and what would be pertinent to what you're going to speak about later that day or the second day, whatever it is. Sometimes for me, it's first or the second day. Maria, what are the kind of things that you ask people when you're at a conference?
All sorts of things. What has happened lately? If it's a company event, what has happened lately in their organization, in their lives, that impacted the way they work, the way they think. All sorts of questions. I even go into more personal questions to find out their characters, their personalities, if they are fun people or, more uptight people, because all these things matter. And what you said, it's so important to spend time with the company and the audience before you get on that stage, that most people don't realize how important that is. And I have a fun story to share. I once worked with a speaker. I was supposed to prepare him for his keynotes and his presentation skills and his presence, right? So I was invited in one of his talks. So I went to the event. And he goes on stage, an inspirational speaker. And it was a festive event because the company he was invited, they were celebrating 120 years of their operations. So it was a festive event. And The moment I went into the room, I sensed that something wasn't going right. Something was really, really wrong. Nobody was festive besides the banners, right? So he goes on stage and he goes about how great we are as a team, how wonderful your company is. And everybody was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Really, negative feelings, and everything was like, oh my God, what on earth is going on? So I asked the lady next to me, I was like, something is really off here. What's going on? And the lady next to me says, you know what? Last evening, they announced major layoffs for many people. And today we're celebrating, really. And some of the people that the company laid off, they're in this room right now. So how are we supposed to celebrate? So the speaker goes on about, his great adventures and courage and how great the company is doing, and yay, let's celebrate. And the audience is negative. Nobody's paying any attention. So he goes off the stage. He comes to me and he says, how did I go? I said, awful. He says, why? I said, one, you didn't get a good brief from the client. Of course I did. He said, I asked about demographics. I was like, okay, everybody asks about demographics. What else did you ask? Did you ask about the situation the company is in? He said, well, I asked, do you have anything important to tell me? And most importantly, what do you want me to say on stage? And I say, that's not the point. I mean, of course you want to get some guidance, but you have to understand where they're at. And number two, you went on that stage and you just, recited your poem. You had no connection with the audience whatsoever. You couldn't tell that people were pissed off because something was wrong. And you just kept on going about your great adventure and how great this company is and blah, blah, blah. So to me, that's audience profiling, what you do before going on that stage and what you do while being on that stage.
Awesome. Awesome. And, it's so easy to do. I've been to a number of events. In fact, I was in Barcelona last fall in October speaking. And I was very surprised to see a number of speakers come in the event, do their speech, and leave.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at them like,
What?
are you doing? What are you doing? Come in, hawk their book, and leave. Well, who's going to talk to you about your book? Who's going to buy your book if you're not even there? And why did you come in last minute with the event organizers biting their teeth? Is this person coming because it's on the agenda for the event that they're next? And all of a sudden they come in, they get their mic, they walk up there like they're superstars and give a ho-hum presentation, not a real good one. And then they get off of there and they walk out. And it wasn't just like one, if you get one, maybe there was something in their personal life that was really had them distracted. But when you get 3 or 4 out of 30 over 2 or 3 days, that's just not smart. Ladies and gentlemen, make a note of that. That is not smart. The people, some of the best speakers I'll give you an example. Larry Wingen, terrific fellow, very high paid fellow, speaker. He had New York Times best-selling book after book after book after book after book. It's because he was connected to the audience. He had a strategy for sales that worked. But most importantly, he spent some time with him. He was right there in the mix. Now, this is a big guy. He's got his fancy cowboy outfit on and stuff like that, but that's his brand. And you can walk up to him and have a conversation about literally anything, and he'll engage you, okay? And when his presentation was over, he walked over to, just happened to be his wife was at the book table selling. Now you got the pair, you got the couple. You have the life side of who's up on the stage, because all too often you get a little bit of head swell there that, okay, I'm being paid very well for you to hear my presentation and I do appreciate it. Well, no, you don't, because the audience is going, okay, you're such a fake. I don't even care about you. Yeah, the president of the company is excited. I'll be excited too, but then that's it. Okay. Now there's a new situation, what Maria and I have been talking about, and that is that audience connection. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've spoken to 2,700 people live. All right. And there was a number of people in that audience that I actually found from talking to them the previous day, and had some relevant information. I also got, like you were talking about, what's the general mood of this summit, and what are key points that are going to be discussed and worked out in panels and those kinds of things that when I'm up there, I can address as, well, by the way, blah, 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 blah. Now, I was talking to a young woman yesterday who talked about XYZ, and that's relevant. That's something to think about out there. And we would go through that. Now I have connected directly with the audience. Okay. That is important. Know your audience. Give yourself a little bit of time to do the profiling. Now, profiling, on movies and television, that's a very smart cop that comes into a murder scene or something like that, and they look for little clues. Well, in my book, Profiling for Profit, what Crossed Arms don't tell you is it's very important for you to read how a person is sitting there. Now, if they pick up their phone and start checking their phone, you may not be interested, or they might have an actual emergency. But you get a number of people in there, you as a speaker decide what that means. Looking at their phone, you get to change up your speech. You get to change the speed of your rhetoric. You need, what I do, and what I know a lot of people do, is they'll stop and be silent for a couple of seconds. Then everybody looks up. How come? What happened? Okay, you get it back, and then you continue. Right? If you're not funny, don't start with a joke. If you are not a comedian, do not start with a joke. Best case scenario, you get a few people go, and that's it. But you've disconnected from it in all possibility. Don't start with a joke. Okay? Start out with something that's meaningful to you that you would like to share to them. From your heart and your soul, I'm here today to speak about this and that, and they'll feel it. That energy goes out there into the room, and they'll feel that. Maria, thoughts?
Well, you said too many important things. Number one, well, you're the profiling expert. Number one, what you said about mingling with the audience before going on stage, and then while you are on stage, using all this data, the experience, and even naming the people, saying, I met Peter, and Peter told me that he went to, I don't know, wherever, and he had a wonderful vacation. And, you bring in what they told you, not the, confidential part, of course. And immediately you relate with the audience, especially in company events, and not necessarily, the big ones. But most speakers, the part that they face difficulty with is reading the audience while they are on stage. They find that really hard, unless, it's signals like they're looking at their mobile phones or they're falling asleep, which are cues that anyone can grasp. But they're really struggling with body language cues and these little details, because while they are on stage, they are, well, not all, but the ones that are in trouble, at least with profiling, they are primarily concerned about how they are doing as speakers, rather than how their audience is doing. And once you're on that stage, then it's no longer about you and how great you are or the great experience that you have or the great adventure. It's about them. So all you need to think about is how are they reacting to what you're saying? And is it valuable to them? Is it interesting to them? If not, move on. Engage them. So what I do as a speaker myself, I always ask permission from the company that hires me about the freedom that I have while on that stage. Because if I spot that the audience is really pissed off, like the example I gave you with the other speaker before, then I really don't care about why they hired me to talk about. I really don't care to recite my poem, as I said before, but I do care to hear what this audience has to say. They have to, address the elephant in the room, get the skeletons out of the closet. They have to face what's troubling them, because that brings value to a corporate event, at least. Not me saying what leadership presence is or whatever they hire me for. So I always ask this kind of permission from the organizer. Am I free to do as I please, or are there boundaries? Because, some companies, they don't want to address the hot issues. So give me my limits, my boundaries, so that I know what I'm doing. But going back to what worries most speakers is that they can't tell how the audience is reacting unless the cues are very obvious. So with you being the profiling expert, I would love to hear what advice you have to give them, and I can, fill in bits and pieces on that as well.
What a great segue! What a great segue! That's the next thing I was going to talk about. There are little things that again are in the profiling book that are very important, and there's little things. For those of you who are watching, thank you for doing so. When you pick up a little baby, where does that baby go? It goes right over here on the left side, over your heart. Okay, the left side of the body. Okay, you were to split it in half. The left side of the body is love, nurture. They're following you. They believe you. So if somebody has tipped their head to the left, especially if they go left and down, they really understand and they are connected to you. Whereas the opposite is deflection, distrust, confusion. So there's a question that I use many times during a presentation, and it's a very simple one. Does that make sense? 97% of the time, they will respond orally, yes. Or if they're being respectful, they'll say, no, but I got a question. Okay, now there's engagement. All right. It may be ahead of your Q&A, but that's okay. It's not that important. That you can get back out of that. Here's the important part for those of you who are speaking or thinking about speaking. What you're doing, when I ask people, does that make sense? And they don't say anything, I said, okay, so it doesn't make sense? Oh, now, yeah, it does. Okay, so does that make sense? Yes. Okay. You have psychologically allowed that person to say the word yes to you out loud. So their human ears hear the fact that they said yes. Now, why is that so important? Because society programs us to say no the first time. Okay. You're in sales programs and things like that. They teach you, expect a no first time. Well, I figured out a way to distract that and cut it off, that automatic no, to, well, maybe, but I have a question. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, now it's time for you to buy my books or whatever. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, the books are in the back of the room. I'll sign them for you if you like. You've given them permission multiple times, 3 to 5 times per presentation or speech, so that when I engage with them later to possibly speak at their event or whatever it is, they have permission to say yes to out loud, and they're more likely to do that. So that's a very huge thing. Does that make sense? I put it up here so you guys that are watching the recording can remember that and write it down. We in the speaking business and the teaching business say this is a writer downer. Ding. Okay. So write it down. And it's very important. Maria, does that make sense?
Yes, yes. And that's a wonderful technique, actually, because you interact with the audience, you gain their permission, you hear the word yes out loud with all the neurological factors that affect it. So definitely yes. What I do is I move among the audience, actually. I love big stages and I love being on a stage. But I want to feel the audience, and organizers usually hate that because it doesn't suit their logistics, the cameras and the microphones and everything. But, if you have the chance to move in between the people and say what it is that you have to say and get them involved, that's exactly what gets me excited. And so far it gets them excited as well, because they feel as a part of the whole thing. If you think it's a theater play, they feel like, they are the protagonists all of a sudden. So that helps. But profiling, you said before something about mobile phones, and I have to share something, because many speakers have been complaining to me saying that I went to this corporate event, and this happens usually with corporate events, by the way. So I went to this event to give to deliver a keynote, and half the audience, they were on their tablets, laptops, or mobile phones. And this is becoming a trend lately. So I gave a lot of thought on this. It's not that the audience became arrogant or disrespectful towards the speaker. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the speaker is not good enough. Of course, if the speaker is phenomenal, their eyes will be on the speaker and not on the laptop. But people are facing many, many pressures lately and many, many deadlines. And we've given them the technology to allow them for even more deadlines and even more pressure. So what they're doing now, they take work inside the conference room because they can't manage otherwise. And if you don't allow them to do their work inside the conference room, then they go outside where the coffee tables are, and they're not in the hall. So they're not listening to the speaker anyway. So this is a relatively new phenomenon. It hasn't happened yet to me. I don't know how we will react. I'll probably mingle with them and go like, what are you doing today? Because that's more of my style. But it's something that we need to consider, especially when profiling the audience, that it's not necessarily a sign that they're bored. Maybe they're trying to listen while doing their work, although you and I know that multitasking is a myth. But most of the people don't. So I'm curious, how would you react if you go into a room, and no matter how interesting you are, they take out their mobile phones or their laptops and they hide behind the screen while trying to listen to you? What do you do?
Mm-hmm. A lot of times talking to the audience ahead of time, you've got a feeling for what kind of stressors are in the audience, assuming that they're not paying attention to you is one thing, but assuming assuming that your presentation is as good as you think it is, they may be telling their friends about you. So the silence pause is huge. Okay, if you just stop for 3 seconds and kind of watch the room and then continue, people will look up. They'll see what you're doing. There are people. I have good friends that are very senior people, senior executives, and they have their laptops out and stuff because they're taking notes about what you're saying incessantly because they're massive note takers. There's a way for you to tell if you're engaged with them and they're taking notes for you or they're ignoring you. Head left, they're following you. Head right, they're not. Okay? That I have proven over the years over and over and over again. Okay? There are people in the audience that have an emergency at home or whatever, and they're waiting for updates, or they're checking on the updates. What's going on? You know, when you get a few people in a room like that, a very small percentage, ignore it. However, if you want to test the audience, there's always the tried and true. Does that make sense? People look up. Ooh, what did you just say? And if they don't react to it or they smile, yeah, that makes sense, and go back to what they're doing, then they're probably paying attention to you. The key thing that I teach when my mentees and clients are about to do something very important is in the back of your mind, you put the face of the ideal person that you want that presentation to receive. What that message that you're sending out there, who in the audience is the person, if not more, for you to send your message out there and it get received, okay? That message is going to a whole lot fewer people in the audience than the whole audience. However, there are 3 ways for your message to get to the right people. One is direct. They hear your speech. 2, the person that works directly for them is in the audience and they're taking notes for their boss because you need to talk to their boss. You're the one he's or she's always complaining she can't find. And then 3, there's some people in the audience out there play golf with your person all the time. And that next weekend when they're all out playing golf and your message gets flipped out there, God, I wish I could find somebody who could do X, Y, Z. Oh, wow. This guy, Terry, this Ambassador Terry, was at the summit the other day. You got to talk to him. He's your man, okay? Or this woman, Maria Papacosta, spoke directly to that. She's on LinkedIn. You need to talk to her. You have validated your message right there, about as hot and as clear and concise as it can be, because somebody they know, like, and trust intimately has just told them about you. So that's very important. It's not necessarily how many people in the room are paying attention to you, because one of the things that you're doing to keep them paying attention to you is you've spent a lot of time with a lot of the people in the audience out there, and you're throwing out cliches of their business world, their industry, that they pay attention to. Hey, this guy or this woman not only speaks about XYZ, but they speak in my language. They understand me when I speak that, okay? That will keep the audience far more engaged. Maria.
Couldn't agree more with everything. So what I would say, to make a nice summary of what we just said, I would say that before you go on that stage, yes, of course, take all the key demographics, age, gender, location, education, occupation, whatever. Take all the psychographic factors as well, values, beliefs, lifestyles that these people have. Take all the technographic, because not all people are at the same level of, familiarity with technology. So before designing your presentation. And if you're going to use mobile phones or tablets or whatever, take the technographic data and make sure that you find out the current and future situation that the company is at, if you're talking at a corporate event. And get permission from the organizer for the things that you want to do, so that when you're on stage, you can manage situations effectively and efficiently. As Terry said, Ambassador Terry, go before the event. You're not a diva going to sing a song and disappear. So go up before the event and mingle with the audience. Get to know them. Find out what they truly want. Use that experience when you get up on the stage. When in trouble, silence is louder than the loudest voice. So be silent and see how they react. Look out for cues. And I would add here, don't stress yourself too much, because, people come to me and ask me, Maria, do I have to look for people looking up or people looking down, people looking to the left or people looking to the right? And how they cross their arms. I'm like, don't bother with the crossing arms, because yes, depending on how you cross your arms is important, but latest theory has proven that it's a habitual factor and a convenience as well. I'm bored and I'm doing this, or it's more relaxing to sit like this. It's not necessarily that I'm bored. So, don't until you gain some expertise with micro expressions and body language, pay attention to the important cues before you go down that road. And after your presentation, stay at the event and interact with the audience. People don't have enough time for Q&As, and they are eager to meet the speakers and ask the question that they were shy to ask during the event, or they didn't have enough time. They want to see you. They form queues just to meet you. So giving the talk and then getting on the next plane out, don't do that. It's not about you, it's about them. That's my summary, at least.
Yeah, very, very nice. And, the famous question,
Oh, yes, of course, I forgot.
Is huge.
Huge, yes.
Does that make sense? The silence is very important. For those of you watching the recording, you can stop the recording and pick up the book title or whatever. And you can stop and make some notes along the way for that somebody you're thinking about. And that's pretty well a wrap for what we have today. Be yourself. Start with here. And everything will come out where it's supposed to be. And the people that are supposed to understand it will understand it. So thank you very much, Maria Papacosta. I had a ball. Thank you for being here with me.
Me too. And by the way, if you haven't read Ambassador Terry's book on profiling and you want to learn more details about profiling, you have to buy the book. It's on Amazon. Go get it.
Yes, and I don't mind if you buy it. And it's available on Kindle. My clients all carry it on their cell phone in their Kindle, because there's a lot of references in there about how to network a room and do those kinds of things that are quick to find in the book and very relevant. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching today. And for those of you who are picking up the recording, thank you for doing so. Reach out to either of us. We're both right here on LinkedIn, Facebook, and you can reach us here, YouTube as well. Thank you again, and bye for now.
Thank you.